Recording is in progress. So once again, welcome to the AOSP and AAOS May Meetup. Okay, so the agenda for today is I want to talk about AOSP Meetup projects, which will become obvious or clearer, hopefully, in a couple of minutes. And then at 6:30, we have Jose Fritas from Foracia talking about the automotive AOSP app ecosystem challenges and opportunities for app developers. At 7 o'clock, we have Chet talking about, well, you can't get in the past, how early design decisions continue to influence Android today. So how did Android become what it is? And indeed, what actually is it? So that's going to be an informal kind of chat. If you have questions for either of the present or any of the presentations, go ahead and ask them in the Zoom chat channel is probably the simplest way. And then we'll finish off with time for Q&A and just general networking if we want. And the whole thing will definitely finish by 8 p.m. my time, which will be something different for your time. Okay, so I've got a couple of things which I just want to bring up. So I like to sort of, keep abreast of things. And the Android build system has been going through a few changes recently. So I just wanted to document them here just for the fun of it. So here's some things. So first of all, the master branch is now the main branch. Follow that link there. By the way, I'll post a link to these slides in a minute or two. So master becomes main, no big surprise there, I don't think. Second point. Yeah, I've been telling everybody for the last 12 months or so that the Android build system is migrating from Sung to Bazel. And I've been explaining how that migration will solve all the problems that are currently in the Android build system. And I thought this was a good idea. However, when I did this presentation a couple of months ago, well, about a month ago in actual fact, somebody put their hand up and said, it's not happening anymore. And I said, really? And they pointed me to this document where it says, Android and Bazel, caution, as of October 2023, the project to migrate Android to Bazel is cancelled. And I checked a couple of places and asked a couple of people, and they confirmed that is indeed the case. This poses lots of questions and not very many answers. One question that comes to my mind is, what happens to all the Bazel stuff that was added into Android 14 as part of this migration and is slowing the Android 14 build down even further? Does that disappear, or is it replaced, or is it tidied up, or whatever? So frankly, that's a real pain. And then more recently, with release 29 of Android 14, a couple of things happened which I found surprising. So I just want to touch on a few of these things. So the first two are to do with the launch command, and the last one is to do with basically with the repos and what you get when you do a repo sync. Okay, first bit then. Android is migrating to a rolling release method, which means essentially that all commits will now be on the main branch rather than two product branches. And as part of that, now when you run launch, you have to specify three things. You give the product name, the release name, and the variant. The release then turns out to be, well, in my example at least, is trunk staging or next or trunk food. There may be some other options that come along later on, but that's what it is at the moment. So now you have to say things like lunch, and then you give the product name, for example, AOSP_ARM. You give the release, something like trunk_staging, and then you give the variant eng for an engineering build. Okay, fine, you say. One kind of consequence of this, or at least because of this, the lunch menu doesn't work anymore. And that kind of hides a little bit the fact that the extra element is required for the lunch target. I mean, it's not too hard to find out, but even so, it's a bit confusing. So now when you run the lunch command without any parameters, it says, blah, 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 warning, cannot display lunch menu. Okay. Turns out you can display the lunch menu with a bit of fiddling around, and I did this just to get a bit of information, really. So if you do this command, it will display the lunch menu for you, or at least it will display the list of possible lunch targets. If you want to delve into this in a little bit more detail, lunch targets are defined in these files called androidproducts.mk. And when you run the lunch command, essentially, it parses the Android products MK files, and it puts all of the products into a Soong variable called common lunch choices. And you can display Soong variables using getBuildVar. However, if you just type getBuildVar common lunch choices, it throws an error. And it basically says, please set target release, where release is one of AP1A. Okay, AP1A is the current prefix for Android tags. So if you set target release to be AP1A, getBuildVar common lunch choices, and then because common lunch choices is just the name separated by spaces, which are a little hard to read, you can use the translate command to swap spaces for new lines. That then gives you a nice list of lunch targets. So to be honest, I was quite pleased when I finally worked all that stuff out. Michelle. So Michelle says in the chat, the above was fixed. Oh no, okay, right, yeah. Come back to that in a moment. Sorry, Michelle. I'll come back to that point in a moment. So there's this one actually. So this is the thing about repo sync. So I did a repo sync of release 29, and it took all day, and it also swamped or completely ate all my disk space, and it downloaded about 900 gigabytes of stuff. So I thought, what the hell is this about? Turns out that in release 29, for some unknown reason, they removed from the manifest file the line that goes clone depth equals 1 on all of the binary blobs. And yeah, turns out these binary blobs take up a lot of space. Hint to everybody listening and anybody from Google who might be here, putting binaries into a Git repository is a really bad idea. This is definitely not what Git is intended for. Don't ever do this again. But here's an example. So here is the kernel for the BlueJ, which is pixel 6 something or other. If you just clone if you set the clone depth to 1, you get just one copy of the binary, and it's half a gigabyte. If you get everything, you get every single version of that kernel that has ever been, and you get 14 gigabytes. So a 28-fold increase in space. Hence, the entire build now, the entire download now takes 900 gigabytes. What can you do about it? You can do a couple of things. You can do a partial clone, as described here. Partial clone is probably the best thing to do. This just means it downloads only the Git objects you really need. Anything that you're not, that's basically not reachable immediately is not downloaded, but there is a link to it. So if you do try, for example, and check out an older build, an older commit, Git will silently in the background go and download the missing bits and pieces, and it will just work. So partial clone's the simplest. You can also set the clone depth with minus depth equals 1 in your repo init. That also works. Downside of that is you don't have a Git history. However, as Michelle was just saying in the chat, this is actually fixed. It was never a problem on the main branch, and it has been fixed in the QPR2 release branch. So yeah, that's nice to know. So that's it about the build system. So Chet says, is that jump the case for -C latest? Yeah. So I always do a repo sync -C. So yeah. So that's regardless of whether you do a repo -C or not. Quick note about DroidCon Berlin, which I'm quite excited about. So I've been doing a bit of work on this myself. So there will be a strong presence for the automotive folks at Berlin. There'll be workshops, there'll be panels. BMW, Cariad, Paradox Cat, and others will be there. And of particular interest to myself, I'll be running a Birds of a Feather session. So Birds of a Feather means basically a meetup, but within the DroidCon conference. So if you're there, come along to the BOF, the Birds of a Feather, and it's another chance just to get together and chat about stuff and just to get to know each other. And then I'll quickly mention Linux Plumbers in Vienna coming up in September. There is as always, there is an Android micro conference, and the call for papers is out. So if you fancy talking at Linux Plumbers, go click on this link here and go to Vienna. Why not? Good place to be. Quick reminder then, group resources. We have, of course, the AOSP and AAOS GitHub IO thing with the website. We have the meetup group, and I will post all the talks. They will be on YouTube, and I'll link to them in the from the GitHub IO site. And the next meetup for your diaries is going to be on July, as usual, the third Wednesday of the month, so 17th of July. Call for contributions. I'm running out of time here, but yeah, if you have something to say, let me know somehow or other. You can contact me by email or through the meetup chat or the Zoom chat or whatever. But I'm always up for ideas for people who are talking here. This is not about me. This is about the community.